Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. With the COVID-19 pandemic that is in front of us, there's no question that it has changed our short-term dynamics within the district, but it has not impacted our long-term needs. So we're very sensitive to the fact that we're working our way through what's happening with COVID, and we're very, very much attuned to that fact. But we're definitely thinking about the long-term health and well-being of the district as a whole. That's why I want to take this time to just share some thoughts as it relates to Propositions C and Propositions S, both of which will be on the ballot on June 2nd, Tuesday, June 2nd, 2020. As you all know, the election has been postponed from April 7th and now moved to June 2nd to be in alignment with the executive order that Governor Parsons, in fact, put in place. A June election is different for us, there's no question about that. So we just want to make sure that everyone's very much aware of that fact, that we moved from April 7th to June 2nd for the election. So want everyone to exercise their right at the ballot on June 2nd. WSD learns these bullet points have been discussed in great depth in the past. There's no question about that. The most important one is the one that talks about team. It's what we've done as a district, and it's what we're going to continue to do here in the Wentzville School District to keep our focus on what's in the best interest of kids. But the only way we're going to do it in a district that changes at the rate that we're changing is as a team. So our enrollment update, there's no question the Wentzville School District continues to be the fastest growing school district in the state of Missouri. Back in September on our enrollment count day, we had 17,335 students in the Wentzville School District, and that represented a growth factor of 546 students over the course of last summer. So what you see now displayed in front of you is literally this century in the Wentzville School District. Back in 2000, you can see what we had, just over 6,000 students in the Wentzville School District. You can see where we currently stand during the 2019-2020 school year of 17,335 students. If you're wondering what we do over the course of the summer, we do a number of very, very important, very critical things gearing up for the upcoming school year. One of these is looking at our enrollment. What's happening in terms of enrollment over the course of the summer as well. And as you can see, we have absolutely had a very, very busy summer. I want to draw attention to the summer of 2016. It was actually in the middle of that month, I believe it was on a Thursday, we actually had a full administrator meeting. So every administrator in the Wentzville School District was actually in one location for full day training. At the close of that training, sent everyone back to their buildings to close out the workday. On that one day, the Wentzville School District grew 67 students in one day, 67. Over the course of the remaining 2 weeks of that summer, we grew another 223 students. That's one of the reasons that for the summer of 2016, you see a growth factor of 643. Just amazing growth that continues to happen in the Wentzville School District. You know, there has been question of what are we doing to mitigate the growth that we're seeing in this district? Are we being creative? Are we finding different solutions to deal with the growth? There's no question, in fact, we are. This slide really covers all of that. All of the square footage that we've added on across this district. We have added on to effectively every building with the exceptions of Stone Creek and Wabash because they were purposely built to be buildings that would have over 101,000 square feet of instructional space. You can see on this slide it shows the fact that we have added on to effectively every building in this district, in many cases more than once, just to deal with what we're seeing in terms of growth. And what you see in the bottom right corner continues to be a very factual statement and truly a piece that continues to shape our work, our thoughts, all of our energies as a school district. We are the fastest growing school district in the state of Missouri for the 21st century. Prop E 2018 construction updates. I want to give everyone an update of what is happening as it relates to construction. Our new high school is moving right along and is scheduled for completion and will open in fall of 2021. Our newest elementary school, Journey Elementary School, is scheduled and slated to be opened in fall of 2020. In our expansion projects at Holt, there's a gymnasium that is being currently constructed and work is well underway in that building. The Barfield Early Childhood Special Education Center will be ready for students when we start back up in the fall, and Pierce Hall is well underway as well. Boundaries. As busy as this spring semester has been, it's important to remember that back in December, we completed a rebounding process here in the Wentzville School District. These are the new boundary lines of our elementary schools, and that new elementary building, of course, being Journey Elementary School, but these are the boundary lines that will be going into effect our first day of school, which is currently August 24th of 2020. So if you have any questions about any of our boundaries, elementary, middle, or high, please check out the locator tool on the WSD website. You can also see our middle school boundaries. Now, these changes will coincide with the opening of the new high school. So these changes will go into effect in fall of 2021. So you can see the 3 middle schools and what will happen specifically with the boundary lines for these 3 middle schools. And then high schools. The 4th high school does not have a name at this point in time, does have a color scheme, blue and orange, but does not have a name at this particular point in time. But you can see what's going to happen, again, fall 2021, when the 4th high school opens in the Wentzville School District. On top of everything that the district has been working its way through, the district, and specifically the board and cabinet, began to really focus on what was going to be needed next in the Wentzville School District. So as we had a demographic study being conducted, as we had boundary work being completed, we also engaged in some work sessions with the Board of Education to figure out what made the most sense moving forward. The board discussed a potential tax levy increase to the operating tax rate, which has not been increased in the Wentzville School District in 15 years because of needs for additional staff and salary, as well as the potential for a no tax increase bond issue for additional classroom space here in the Wentzville School District. So there are 3 options that were discussed. The first was to build 3 elementary schools and keep grades K through 6 in our elementary schools. The second was to build 2 middle schools, move 6th grade back to the middle schools. And then the third was to build a new middle school, add on or renovate our other 3 middle schools within the school district, and then to move 6th grade back to the middle school. So if the district stays with grades K through 6, the blue is the enrollment within our buildings, and the red is the capacity. So any building that is exceeding the threshold that is laid out in front of it in terms of that red line is exceeding capacity, immediately becomes an issue. So you can see what will happen in terms of overcapacity next year alone within the Wentzville School District. And by the year 2023, we would have 5 buildings that are exceeding capacity if we keep grades K-6 in our elementary schools. So if the district moves 6th grade back to the middle schools and only builds 1 middle school, it's not going to be enough. It will not accommodate what is happening in terms of enrollment growth in the district. And what you see on the right of this slide, on this yellow sheet of paper on the slide itself, simply lays that out. The blue is the current 7th and 8th grade enrollment within the school district. The green is the capacity. And again, with 6th grade going back to the middle schools, you can see what will happen by the year 2022, 2023, in terms of 6th, 7th, and 8th grades all being in the middle schools. So when it comes to salaries and staffing, a couple pieces I want to share. First and foremost, we had a very, very robust conversation with our Board of Education to figure out what would make the most sense. But we also surveyed our community to figure out what our community's thoughts were when it came to supporting a taxation rate increase. We know it's a very, very sensitive subject, and so we wanted some data to help inform this decision. So here's what happened. The data came in, and what we saw was a preponderance of support at 49 cents. We did not see that at 71 cents, and we did not see that at 93 cents. Our needs are so great that there's absolutely a rationale to support putting 93 cents on the ballot. There's no question about that, but it's what the data is ultimately suggesting, or in this case was suggesting, and that's how and why we ultimately landed on 49 cents. So we presented that data to our Board of Education, coupled with the very robust conversation that the board and cabinet had, and we ultimately landed on 49 cents being the price point that was placed on the ballot. So I really want to take a little bit of time and walk through what is going to be on the ballot on June 2nd for both Propositions C and Propositions S. Proposition C will be a no tax increase bond issue that will result in $105 million of proceeds to do what is listed on this particular slide. Build a new middle school, expansions or renovations at Frontier Middle School, South, and Wentzville Middle School, address some maintenance items and some safety items as well. Proposition S, the board ultimately landed on a 49-cent levy increase, which will result in $10.8 million of resources to address staffing, salaries, and safety. Back in the fall, the board committed that if Proposition C does in fact pass, 6th grade will be moving back to the middle schools. We're finding a number of factors to be true. First of all, we're having 6th graders in our buildings with our elementary students, and there are a number of just changes that happen with a student when you're in 6th grade that, regardless of configuration, we can't necessarily stop. Also, the piece that's really, really important is to consider what is happening in our middle schools. By the time our staff are really getting to know students, they're already enrolling in that process or engaging in that process of enrollment to figure out what they're going to take as high school students. That 2-year window is simply too short to most effectively meet the needs of students. There's no question that the K-6 move was absolutely the right move for us to make because it allowed us to present Proposition C as a no tax increase yet again for our community, but it is time for us to in fact move 6th grade back to our middle schools. So let's take a bit of a historical walk and look at the district. You can see back in 2013, we were the 14th largest district in the state of Missouri. As you're looking at the slide, I wanted you to draw a little bit of attention to the very top in terms of St. Louis, Springfield, Rockwood, and North Kansas City. Now, fast forward to 2019. Look at where the Wentzville School District falls in comparison to the top 15 largest school districts as it relates to enrollment in the state of Missouri. You can see the districts that we've jumped over. You can see what is very likely to happen this summer in terms of the fact that we will very, very likely pass both Parkway and Fort Zumwalt. And if you just look ahead, look at what's happening in terms of enrollment growth. You can see Springfield is actually declined compared to 2013. You can see the Rockwood School District's actually declined a little bit in terms of enrollment as well. North Kansas City continues to creep up in terms of enrollment, and then you can see St. Louis City in terms of what's happened with enrollment as well. So as you think about the numbers that you just saw, and you saw Springfield, which was south of 25,000 students in 2019. In 2031, if you look at this particular slide, you can see what is very likely to happen here in the Wentzville School District. Currently 9th, and you can see what could very well happen over the course of the next decade. There is absolutely the potential that the Wentzville School District could very well be the largest school district in Missouri. Back to construction, when we talk about Proposition C, we know where the 4th high school is going to be built. It makes all the sense of the world that we in fact put the middle school just south of that particular building. We have a natural feeder pattern that would occur there. It makes all the sense in the world. We bought over 100 acres of land trying to replicate what happened on the South Campus. And I've read the press clippings. There's a great deal of ridicule in terms of what is the district doing? You're buying this land in the middle of absolutely nowhere. Well, there's a street called Perry Cape Boulevard that now runs down the spine of that particular campus. And there's a very large subdivision that is there as well in terms of Stone Meadows. Looking back, buying a consolidated piece of land made all the sense in the world. It was a brilliant move back then, and it made a lot of sense for us to replicate that at this particular point in time. And that's why we bought the land where the 4th high school is being built. And our proposal says that we'd build that 4th middle school just to the south of that 4th high school. So in terms of feeder patterns, heard a lot of feedback as a result of our rebounding effort. There's no question about that. What you see in front of you is a historical slice. It gives you an idea of what life looked like just before Liberty High School, in fact, opened. You can see what our feeder pattern looked like and how varied the lines were at that particular point in time. What we are looking to do as a result of Proposition C is clean the feeder patterns up. And they would look like what you see on this slide. Again, based off of the feedback that we heard time after time from our patrons as a result of the rebounding effort, people are really looking for us to clean up our secondary feeder patterns and provide as much stability as possible. So Proposition C would do what you see on this particular slide, which is make Wentzville Middle School the feeder for Holt High School, Frontier Middle School the feeder for Liberty High School, South Middle School the feeder for Timberland High School, and then ultimately the new middle school would feed the new high school. At Frontier Middle School, just to the west of that building, in order to accommodate 6th grade going back, we would build a 2-story addition just to the west of the building where the buses currently stage for dismissal at the end of the day. Even further west of that, we build in another loop for the buses to stage, but this would provide space for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students at Frontier Middle School. At South Middle School, just to the north of the building, the blue rectangle that you see there, that's where the new 2-story addition in fact would be built. Again, freeing up enough space so we could have grades 6th, 7th, and 8th at South Middle School. Okay, and then with Proposition C, when it comes to Wentzville Middle School, I want to lay out a couple of points here. So we want to look at potentially adding some classrooms on the northern end of the building, but there's a piece on this particular slide that we're absolutely going to do, and it's the renovation of the kitchen and the cafeteria area at Wentzville Middle School. For those that have been in this community or are historical buffs, you know that Wentzville Middle School was the original high school here in the Wentzville School District. There are portions of that kitchen and cafeteria area that are, depending upon how you want to describe it, you can either describe it as vintage or flat out old. They have been there for some time. We actually have recommendations that go back well over a decade that say we need to renovate and update the kitchen area at Wentzville Middle School. What we want to do is bring that kitchen and cafeteria area up to a level that is on par with what we have at both South Middle School and at Frontier Middle School. So when it comes to construction, we are absolutely renovating the kitchen and the cafeteria area via Proposition C at Wentzville Middle School. So Propositions S, staffing, salaries, and safety. We have a lot of very meaningful, very important conversation about brick and mortar in this district, and it's really, really critical, but our most critical element is the people in the Wentzville School District. In this case, the staff in the Wentzville School District. And I want to talk about some comparative data that show some trends that we need to be very much aware of. Last year, we completed a comprehensive school improvement plan and asked a number of questions. One of these questions was, what should the financial priorities be for the Wentzville School District over the next 5 years? And of the over 3,000 folks that actually completed the survey, you can see what their responses were as it relates to staffing, to salaries, and to safety. We are simply missing layers of staffing. I want to be crystal clear with this. This is not about an attack on anyone in terms of what they are not doing. This is a lack of people power. We are lacking layers of staff. There are amazing things that happen every single day. Quite honestly, whether it's face-to-face or even over a virtual environment, there are amazing things that happen every single day in the Wentzville School District. But we're missing layers of staff. And because of that capacity challenge, there are things that we are not able to do. Let me give you a clear example. Last year, when it came to staffing, we had $10 million of needs that were identified by administration across the district as we were developing our staffing plan. Now, you need to know that we don't have moonshots that are provided. We don't have unrealistic, unnecessary staffing requests. These are all very, very realistic, very measured, and very appropriate requests that are placed by administration as we're working our way through our staffing. And even with that, we were only able to afford $4 million of new staffing. Of the $10 million, it's already exceedingly reasonable. We were only able to approve $4 million of staffing. This current year, we had $11 million. Remember, we grew over 540 students. We had over $11 million of staffing needs that were identified and submitted. And of those $11 million of requests, we were only able to approve just under $3 million of additional staffing. Every year, you've seen the data, we are adding 500 to 600 new students each and every year in the Wentzville School District. And the percentage of our students that are requiring additional supports increases every single year. An increase to the operating levy is desperately needed to address the continued staffing shortages that we're having here in the Wentzville School District. So, if Prop C passes, this is what the next 3 years will look like. Journey Elementary School will open in fall of 2020, and we've had to add an approximate 25 new staff members to staff the building. The following summer, the fourth high school will have a name by then, but the fourth high school will open, and we will need approximately 30 new staff members in order to appropriately staff that building. Now, both at Journey and a new high school, we will have staff that are coming from elsewhere, from other places within the district, but we'll need those numbers that you see listed on this slide in terms of new staff in order to open the building. And you can see what's going to happen when the fourth middle school opens in fall of 2022. You'll see the approximate number of new staff members that will be needed as well. If Prop C passes, we're moving forward with this, which means our staffing conversations, we will have to fill in what you see in terms of the red there for Journey, for the new high school, and for the new middle school. It will absolutely put a significant, and I do mean significant, crunch on our staffing needs elsewhere if we are in fact opening these buildings, when we are opening these buildings. So I want to provide a brief overview of Missouri school finance And there are rules that prohibit you from actually spending funds in different buckets. So the first fund, the general fund, supports staff salaries, benefits, supplies, and utilities. The second bucket is for our teacher salaries and benefits. Our third bucket is for debt service, and then the fourth bucket is for our capital projects, construction, as well as purchase of vehicles and buses in the Wentzville School District. For example, you cannot use Fund 4 dollars to support Funds 1 or Funds 2. There are restrictions and there are rules in place when it comes to all four of these funding streams. And so there is literally a rationale behind all of this, but want folks to understand that when it comes to finances, we're dealing with four buckets here in the state, and these are those four buckets. So our tax rate, remember, only Funds 1 and 2 deal with our operating needs in terms of staffing and salaries in the district. And you can see of our tax rate, you can see what is happening in terms of the breakout with those four buckets. Again, Funds 1, 2, and then capital, and then debt service being Funds 3 and 4. You can see where the dollars, in fact, shake out. Again, there has not been an increase to the district's operating levy since 2004. And just an apples to apples comparison of what our total general and teachers fund obligation looks like compared to our neighbors and compared to two districts in St. Louis County. You can see both Parkway and Rockwood. Now, what they are doing is actually also paying funding into SSD to support the special school district, in fact, bringing staff into either of those school districts or students being served outside of those two school districts by SSD. So those residents not only receive a tax bill from those two school districts, but they also receive a tax bill from the SSD, the special school district. So in total, you can see in the yellow column what their total taxation looks like in terms of general and teacher fund. You can see where we rank compared to those two districts, as well as St. Charles, Fort Zumwalt, Francis Howell, and the Orchard Farm School District as well. And at the bottom, you can see what a 49-cent increase would do in terms of our rank, or comparing where we would fall in terms of our obligation compared to what you're seeing in these other districts when it comes to general and teacher fund. So how does the Wentzville School District stack up? The goal of Prop S is to address salaries for all employee groups. I'm going to share 4 slides that show apples to apples comparison for 4 different groups of employees. These are just examples. Again, Prop S is purposely designed to address the salary gaps that we are seeing for all employee groups in the Wentzville School District, all employee groups in the Wentzville School District. But let's deep dive in these 4 examples. The first you see is teachers. The Wentzville School District, for this and the next 3 slides, will be the district that you see in yellow. But you can see what is happening when it comes to beginning teacher salary in the Wentzville School District compared to these other districts. You see Pattonville, Orchard Farm, Parkway, Francis Howell, St. Charles, Rockwood, Fort Zumwalt, Wright City, and then you see the Wentzville School District. Then you see Troy just below us there. Custodians. And we need our support staff every single day that we have students in the Wentzville School District. You see what is happening comparatively for our beginning custodial pay compared to these other districts that are listed on this slide. Our secretaries. You are seeing a theme of where the Wentzville School District is falling in comparison to other districts. There's no question about it. You see again where the Wentzville School District falls in comparison to the other districts that are listed on this slide. And for transportation, really going to focus on 2 districts. You see the Wentzville School District in the yellow, and then you can see Francis Howell in blue. Okay, so there are always a number of questions when it comes to tax rate. So if I were king for the day, I will be very honest with you, I would eliminate a provision. It's called the Hancock Amendment. What the Hancock Amendment does is it prohibits a district from experiencing a windfall. So even though we have seen increases in our assessed valuations, we have seen those over time in the Wentzville School District, the Hancock Amendment not only forces you to not experience the windfall, but you have to roll your tax rate back. And because of our growth in assessed valuation in this district, what you see is that rollback effort. As a result, you can see what our tax rate looked like in 2016, compared with where we happen to be in 2019. So it puts a restriction on the amount of funds that are able to come in terms of tax rate via the consumer price index. So that's typically anywhere from, let's say, 1.7 to 2.1% in terms of an increase of CPI, but we are forced, as a result of the Hancock Amendment, to roll that back when we do see growth in our assessed valuations. So impact, what will 49 cents mean on a homeowner? And you can see those price points for a home that is valued at $200,000, one that's valued at $250,000, and then one that is valued at $300,000. You can see the monthly and then the annual impact in terms of what Proposition S would mean for a homeowner. So let's drill down and let's look at an actual sample of a home that was on the market. You see the list price of the home on Zillow, and then you can see the appraised value according to the assessor's office, and you see the assessed value of the home. You can see what this would ultimately mean in terms of a tax estimate for this particular home in Wentzville, here in the Wentzville School District, and what that would mean on an annual basis. And again, we have a weekly, a monthly, and then an annual breakout listed on the bottom of this slide as well. So what about all those subdivisions? This is a fair question. It's one that we've been working our way through for some time. Let's walk through a hypothetical example. Let's say a home is valued at $200,000. The annual property tax bill for that home is going to be roughly $2,500. Of that $2,500, about 65% of that, or $1,600 of that $2,500 tax bill, in fact, goes to the Wentzville School District. So again, if a home is valued at $200,000, about $1,600 of that is going to go to the Wentzville School District. That is our cost to educate a student in the Wentzville School District. $1,600 of taxation, and you see what the cost per student looks like here in the Wentzville School District. Safety. So safety is listed on both Prop S and Prop C. This is a part of what you see in our comprehensive school improvement plan is our portrait of a WSD learner. We have to work to ensure that students, staff, everyone is safe. What you see on the left is a very, very specialized piece of equipment that we have in our buildings. And what it is a walkie-talkie. There is a button that is on this particular walkie-talkie. And these walkie-talkies are each programmed so that our first responders know the exact address and location of the buildings. So here's what happens. If that button is depressed, a call goes into our first responders. And because that button is depressed, the call actually goes to the front of the line of all of the call traffic at that particular desk, and they will know the location of the building because it's actually programmed within that particular device. That is a piece of safety equipment that we have in not only our schools, but every building in the Wentzville School District. So we want to continue to look at other options and other avenues when it comes to safety. Another example that we would like to look at is there are devices that allow, as soon as a patron enters the building, you present your driver's license and you swipe your driver's license. Upon swiping of the driver's license, a background check is immediately run. And if there's a red screen that pops up, if there's a red X that pops up, we're going to have a very, very different set of conversations because there is something in that individual's background that says they should not be on school grounds or in our school buildings. And so that's another piece of technology that we're going to look at when it comes to safety. There are different devices that are used to secure doors. There are devices that are used to actually lock a building down by depressing a building. There is a full universe that is out there. And when it comes to safety, we want to be on the leading and most cutting edge when it comes to making sure that everyone is safe moving forward. It is so important, that's why it's listed on both Prop C and Prop S for the ballot for June 2nd. This is our ballot history. There are very few districts that can show anything even remotely as complex as what you see here on this particular slide. But this is our experience in the Wentzville School District. You can see a lot of initiatives. That's 27 ballot initiatives over the last 30 years. But when it comes to increases for staffing and for salaries, 2004, August of 2004, was the last time the district had something pass. This is our April voter turnout data. And I believe on just about every other slide in this presentation, I've shown data that just trends in an upward manner. This is the one example where that is not true. You can see April of 2017, you can see April of 2018, and then you can see April of 2019. And you can see what our voter turnout, the raw numbers in terms of percentage, looks like. Again, we're talking June 2nd of 2020, but you can see that we are heading in a direction that definitely raises a question or two. So cast your vote on June 2nd. Every vote counts. We want to make sure that everyone's voice is in fact heard. We have an amazing and absolutely outstanding staff that is doing fantastic things with students on a daily basis. And all we want to do is keep this moving forward. Let's ensure that every student has the space to learn and every teacher has the space to teach, to keep what fantastic things are happening every day within our classrooms or virtually in terms of environment so that every student is able to meet their full potential. Again, these are our propositions, Prop C and then Prop S. Prop C will require a 57.14% rate in order to pass, and Prop S will require a 50% plus 1 passage rate for it to be successful. This is just a reminder of why we do what we do in the Wentzville School District. Students are our North Star. They're the reason that we do what we do on a daily basis here in the Wentzville School District, and I want to thank you for your time and for your attention during this presentation. Have a great day.